Finally, we have at last witnessed Viktor's update. It affected not only his appearance, but also introduced a completely rewritten lore based on the events of Arcane. Previously, his story was full of oddities. Although it had some intriguing moments, it felt too confusing and lacking in motivation. Viktor was portrayed as a scientist who was literally obsessed with the idea of cybernetics and technology, lacking a thorough exploration of his inner world and goals. Everything revolved around mechanics and science. Now, thanks to Arcane, Viktor has a new, much more exciting story. Its details not only grant him meaning and motivation, but also transform him into a truly powerful force in the League of Legends universe. From a mad scientist wielding laser beams, he has become a magical being, a half-mage who creates magical storms and channels mysterious energies. But let us not rush things. Let us look deeper into the changes to his lore. It is interesting to note that despite Viktor's makeover, the stories of the other characters have remained the same so far. That is especially true of Jayce, whose fate is closely linked to Viktor's lore. Therefore, when referencing Jayce's lore, we will treat his story as the old lore, within the context of Viktor's new story. Make yourself comfortable in my tavern, for our story is about to begin. As in the old lore, Viktor was born into a poor family living near the Zaun mines. From an early age, he had to experience all the hardships of living in this harsh place. However, even under such circumstances, his extraordinary mind manifested early, and those around him supported his quest for knowledge in every possible way. Limping and discovering his rare disease, Viktor became increasingly fascinated by inventions. His thoughts kept turning to how technology could help people overcome illness and suffering. He was looking for a way not only to make life easier for others, but also to cope with his own illness. One day in his childhood, he had a meeting that changed his view of the world forever and left a deep mark on his soul. Trying to find where the effluent streams of the sump had carried his toy ship, he encountered a so-called disgraced doctor named Sinjin, who had gone too far in his scientific experiments, ignoring all moral and ethical norms. In his old lore, Viktor was not ill and had no connection to Sinjin. His life was focused exclusively on research. Viktor was passionate about studying the accidents and incidents that occurred in Zaun, and came to the conclusion that in most cases the human factor was the one to blame. It was this thought that led him to the idea of improving the human body with mechanical implants. His innovative approach to workplace safely attracted the attention of Fredison Kempforge. He was invited to work there, quickly achieving impressive results. Thanks to his inventions that automated many processes, the number of accidents in the shop was reduced to 0 in just a month. Soon, Viktor became a sought-after inventor. His developments spread across Zaun, attracting the attention of other industrialists. At some point, his talent led to the next stage, studying at the Piltover Academy. And this is where the significant differences between the old and the new lore begin. According to the old story, Viktor was invited to join Zaun's prestigious Academy of Techmaturgy at the age of 19. It was there that Professor Stanwyck from Piltover took an interest in his work. He convinced Viktor to move to Piltover so that he could study and work in modern laboratories. However, in the new version of the lore, this role is assigned to Heimerdinger. The thing is that in Arcane, Professor Stanwyck has been dead for a long time, as evidenced by his statue, which we see in one of the episodes of the first season. Thus, the connection between Viktor and Stanwyck is completely absent in the new story. In any case, in the new lore, thanks to Heimerdinger, Viktor finally found a place where his genius could be fully revealed. The Academy became not only his home, but also a space where his ideas took shape. One day, an incident occurred in one of the laboratories. Traces of unauthorized experiments were found. Heimerdinger assigned Viktor to deal with the hazardous materials. While investigating the scene, Viktor came across notes with daring ideas that described ways to combine magic and science. These notes ignited a spark of inspiration and curiosity in him. That is how he met Jayce Tallis, a young and ambitious inventor. Their views on the future, even if they did not always coincide, proved to be a powerful catalyst for change. Together, they created Hextech, a technology that changed the look of Piltover and brought it to a new stage of development. Viktor and Jayce became not only associates, but also true brothers in spirit, united by a common goal. However, in the old lore, their acquaintance had a completely different connotation. Viktor and Jayce met at a mandatory Progress Day party, and back then Jayce did not have access to a Hextech crystal. After their meeting, they began working together. Jayce sought to improve humanity through technological innovations, and Viktor focused on fighting against congenital defects, whether physical disabilities or limited vision. Their first big project was a mechanized suit for port workers of Piltover, but their collaboration cracked when Viktor suggested improving the suit with chemical implants. According to him, this could virtually eliminate accidents. Jayce, however, found this invention to be contrary to morality, arguing that it deprived people of their free will. The controversy over the project escalated to the point where Viktor and Jayce almost got into a fight. As a result, Jayce publicly condemned Viktor's invention, which called his reputation into question. This led to Viktor being stripped of all his privileges and effectively expelled from the Piltover scientific community. However, even before their quarrel, tragedy struck. A chemical leak at Zaun devastated entire neighborhoods. Driven by a desire to help, Viktor returned home to find a solution. Using his knowledge of robotics and cognitive circuitry, he designed the Blitzcrank golem to clean up the contaminated streets. This mechanical lifesaver not only coped with the task but also exceeded Viktor's expectations, demonstrating a level of intelligence that the inventor had never anticipated. Interestingly, the Blitzcrank character has not yet appeared in Arcane. According to the developers, the idea of including him was discussed, but it was deemed inappropriate due to the lack of a suitable context. However, this does not mean that we will not see him. Perhaps he will appear in future projects, along with another important character, Camille Pharaohs. After all, in the League of Legends universe, both the Pharaohs family and Camille herself have made a great contribution to the development of Zaun and Piltover. Although there is no mention of Blitzcrank in the new Viktor lore on the official website, we know from the history of the golem that its creator is still Viktor. An inventor named Viktor saw great potential in the immovable iron body and took the golem for himself. A series of experiments began. Viktor tried to improve the automaton with the new element that could significantly push the limits of the program it was built with. This element was Hextech. Having built a priceless crystal from the Shuriman Desert into the mechanism of the decommissioned golem, Viktor watched with bated breath as his creation came to life. Electric discharges ran through the body, an unexpected effect of the crystal's activation, and the golem started moving with a mechanical hum. Viktor named it Blitzcrank and sent it to the most toxic area of Zaun. But then there is a serious discrepancy in the old lore. It is important to note that Viktor created the golem before his fight with Jayce. This is confirmed by the following passage. The consequences of the leak were eliminated. When Viktor returned to Piltover a few months later, he learned that Professor Stanwyck had held a symposium on the invention of the Blitzcrank and had taken credit for Viktor's research. The inventor filed a formal complaint with the Academy administration, but his excited speeches about how he had created the Blitzcrank did not move anyone. He turned to Jayce to confirm his words, but his colleague refused to stand up for Viktor, which made the relationship even more tense. The issue was resolved in favor of Professor Stanwyck. Of course, Viktor was outraged, but despite this, he returned to work with Jayce and together they created a diving suit. Let me remind you guys that Viktor created the Blitzcrank and built a Hextech crystal into it. But then, the question arises, where could Viktor have gotten this crystal from? After all, we know from Jayce's log that after their quarrel, the following events unfold. While Jayce was working alone, prospectors from the Geopara clan discovered the rough blue crystal in the depths of the Shurima Desert. Many months later, scientists came to a unanimous conclusion. The crystal was useless. Just a piece of stone without any energy. The disappointed clan leader eventually handed the crystal to Jayce, believing that even he, with all his intelligence, would not be able to do anything with it. For many months, Jayce conducted all kinds of experiments on the crystal, and one day Jayce approached the task from a completely different angle. He thought that instead of experimenting with the whole crystal, he should conduct more aggressive experiments on a small fragment. During the experiments, a power surge occurred. The next day, to his surprise, an old friend showed up on Jayce's doorstep. Having noticed a blue glow from the lab window as he passed by, Viktor, alarmed by the bursts of power emanating from the crystal shard, came with a simple offer. He said that there was only one thing missing for the glorious evolution, an energy source similar to Jayce's crystal. It all remains a mystery. How did Viktor manage to get a Hextech crystal before Jayce got one? Besides, it is worth recalling that at first these crystals look like ordinary stones without energy. In order for them to work, they need to be cleaned and carefully prepared, which was mentioned earlier when Jayce was conducting his experiments. Let us add one more point here. In the above excerpt from the log, it is said that Viktor accidentally noticed Jayce's lab glowing during the experiments. When he arrived there, his emotions were at their peak. He looked excited and enthusiastic, as if he had never seen such a crystal in his life and had never held it in his hands before. All of this makes the situation unclear and indicates that there is most likely a simple discrepancy in the logic. However, the whole situation ended with Viktor attacking Jayce in a fit of rage, snatching the crystal from his hands and knocking him to the ground with a single blow. When Jayce regained consciousness, he noticed that although Viktor had taken the Shuriman crystal, he had not paid attention to the shard that remained. Without wasting any time, Jayce incorporated the shard into his experimental transforming hammer. The vibrations emanating from the hammer seemed to call him down to Zaun. Following these sensations, Jayce headed there to find Viktor. What he found shocked him to the core. Dozens of bodies with their skulls open and their contents removed, and a whole lot of mechanical creatures roaming Viktor's lab. During this time, Viktor had changed beyond recognition, making half of his body mechanical. Furious and terrified, Jayce rushed to the crystal. Grabbing his hammer, he struck the stone with force, smashing it to pieces. The blast wave from the crystal's destruction swept everything around, destroying Viktor's lab. However, Viktor managed to escape. He took the attack as proof of his rightness. In his view, Jayce's rash actions confirmed that humanity must rid itself of emotional weaknesses. This only strengthened the resolve to continue working on his glorious evolution. Viktor organized a raid on Jayce's lab, sending his men there, reinforced with chemical modifications. Officially, this was not revenge but rather an attempt to determine if Jayce still had any Shuriman crystal fragments useful for Viktor's purposes. This attempt failed, and Viktor kind of left Jayce behind. Now he was fully focused on finding ways to elevate humanity to a new level, free from emotional flaws. His research increasingly crossed ethical boundaries, whether in Piltover or Zaun. However, Viktor was convinced that all of these steps were necessary to achieve his great goal, the glorious evolution. It is worth noting that Viktor and Jayce's relationship in the old League of Legends lore was fraught with tension. While at the beginning of their collaboration, conflicts mostly took the form of scientific disputes. Over time, these disputes led to deep dislike, irritation, and even hatred. Jayce repeatedly set Viktor up without providing any support, as in the story of Blitzcrank or the invention of the diving suit. In the new lore, which is based on the series, their relationship in the first season looks entirely different. Jayce and Viktor are loyal allies who genuinely support each other and are in sync with their work. There is absolutely no hint of betrayal or hypocrisy between them. Yet as time goes on, Jayce and Viktor's paths start to diverge. They can no longer understand each other's aspirations, foreshadowing future conflicts. It all started when Viktor's illness grew more severe over the years, gradually weakening his body and spirit. Eventually, he discovered a ray of hope, an adaptive rune matrix created to transform organic matter. Viktor believed this evolving artifact could help cure his ailments. Sadly, all experiments ended in failure. Aware of the risk, he knew that researching on himself could ruin his reputation and cost him the support of his family. Still, he genuinely believed Jayce, his best friend, would stand by him even in such a desperate venture. But that trust dissolved when Jayce began to develop prejudices against the people of the Undercity. Viktor felt their friendship slipping away. Deciding to hide his intentions, he conducted his experiments alone. This isolation proved fatal. Having lost control of the Hex core, Viktor caused a tragedy. A woman was killed. The incident weighed heavily on Viktor. Tormented by guilt, he nevertheless could not destroy the core, even if he wanted to. The burden of failing to create inventions meant to save lives only deepened his inner turmoil. Although he genuinely wished to fix his mistakes, an attack on Piltover's council came unexpectedly. During the attack, Viktor was gravely injured and came close to death. His survival was possible solely due to Jayce Talus's ingenuity. The Hex core healed Viktor's shattered body, leaving no trace of wounds. Yet rather than feel gratitude, Viktor was bitter. Jayce's apparent apathy toward what truly mattered to Viktor seemed to have driven out the last remnants of their once strong friendship. Viktor returned to the Undercity, and it was there, among the impoverished, and discarded that he found a new purpose. With a single touch of his cold metal hand, he could heal any disease and free a person of emotion. Word spread like wildfire throughout Zaun. Soon enough, Viktor became more than just a healer. He became a savior. Those who had lost everything found refuge and protection with him. Peace did not last. Their modest sanctuary came under attack by a squad of Noxians under the command of General Ambassador. Viktor was seriously wounded in the battle, but again escaped death by a stroke of luck. This time, however, something inside him changed. Casting aside fear, love, sorrow, joy, hatred, and compassion, he emerged as a mechanical herald of a new age. His followers were no longer free. They had become instruments of his will. Purged of all emotion, Viktor saw his purpose more clearly than ever. He vowed to save humanity from itself by reshaping the world through the glorious evolution. Even if people were not ready for it, Viktor had no doubts that he would guide them to perfection, no matter the cost. As you guys can see, little remains of Viktor's old lore. Many fans, however, appreciate the deeper meaning of the new version, reinforced by his actions and ideals. Viktor is no longer just a mad cyborg scientist experimenting on humans. He has become a genuinely powerful figure who, although stripped of emotion, seeks to give salvation to those who need it. Thank you for spending time with me and delving into this tale. If you enjoyed it, please support the channel by subscribing and leaving a like. Your support inspires us to share more enthralling stories. Let me know what you guys think of Viktor's new appearance in the comments. I would love to hear your opinion. This is where I bid you guys farewell. See you soon over a glass of the finest ale in Runeterra.